And we are back for another casual conversation with the Classic. And today, guys, I have a very special guest, the longest reigning Ring of Honor television champion, the most combined days as Ring of Honor world champion, a Grand Slam champion in his own right, someone I've been a fan of for many, many years, none other than Jay Lethal. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. And to touch on something in that cool intro you gave me just now, you mentioned the longest reigning combined reign as Ring of Honor World Champion.
Is
Things
that
will
not correct?
probably, well, no, it is correct.
Okay.
But you have to combine both my first reign and my second reign together to be the longest. But, you know, the person who did it the longest in one reign is Samoa Joe. He's the longest reigning champion in one title reign.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
had two title reigns, and luckily, when you combine them together, that beats Samoa Joe. And interesting enough, he's now at AEW, so things definitely will get a little interesting when it comes to who has the rightful claim of being the longest reigning Ring of Honor World Champion. I'm definitely going to say that he's going to try and tell you that the fact that I'm saying I'm the longest reigning is a technicality because you have to combine both my reigns.
Yeah.
And he did it in one shot. So I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes.
We're going to talk all about that. I'm glad that we're doing this interview now because there's a lot of interesting things that happened this past weekend. And the fact that you said that, if anyone would point out a technicality like that, and you know him better than anybody, it would probably be Samoa Joe.
Oh, yes.
So I understand why this is already spinning in your head, because if anyone's going to point out a technicality like that, it would be Samoa Joe.
Trust me, as my mentor.
Yeah.
As my mentor, he has pointed out many a technicality on me plenty of times. So, yeah.
No, and that's why I love that you brought that up, is because you're so aware of that. Like I said it, and you're like, oh, I know what's going to come up. Even if you listen to this for a minute, that's the first thing he's going to say. So it's funny that you brought it up that way. We were supposed to record this last week. You got booked in a match last minute with Jon Moxley. So I wanted to quickly ask you, like, how have you worked with Jon Moxley in the past while he was on the Independents, or was this the first time you guys got to work with each other?
Actually, Jon Moxley and I crossed paths maybe twice. We were on about 2 or 3 independent shows back in the day. I think maybe 05, 06, somewhere around there, maybe 09.
Yeah.
But we've never actually stepped in the ring together. That was our first time.
Oh no! So how was it? Like, was that something that like you got excited about? And
oh yeah. And you know, one thing that excites me, and it excites a good friend of mine, Jonathan Gresham, as well. Anytime two wrestlers get to step into the ring and their styles are completely different. Gresham always says that styles makes fights. He thinks that is when it's the most interesting, when you can do something that hasn't been presented before. If this guy's a wrestler and this guy's a brawler, this guy's a high flyer and this guy's a wrestler, that's when it gets interesting. And for me, this was the first time I had such a big difference in our styles. Me being the wrestler, being in there with a hardcore brawler like Moxley. I think we hit a home run. I think the match itself was pretty good. But yeah, I was definitely a little nervous going into it. I do believe it was one of the most highest profile things I'd done at that point in AEW.
Well, that's the coolest thing about seeing you run in AEW so far. All the people we get to see you work with that we probably didn't think we were going to see at one point. Because what you know, you were in Ring of Honor, and then we had all the stuff that happened with Ring of Honor, and it's been fun seeing you work with these people and having these matches that we like. You know, Jay Lethal versus Sammy Guevara. I don't think I was going to see that anytime soon. Like a lot of cool matches. You know what I mean? Like, that being said, Ring of Honor did make its return this past weekend. It did make its return this past weekend.
Yes. You talked about the Sammy Guevara. I couldn't have dreamed of a better first opponent for anyone's debut. That was my first match for AEW, my debut match against Sammy Guevara. I had never been in the ring with him. I've seen his stuff. He is crazy, and he will do anything. He's not afraid of anything. And I couldn't have asked for a better first opponent. That was just magic.
Yeah, no, and he's tremendous, and he's the guy that's always like he'll take the craziest bump in the match if he has to, and he jokes about it on
Yes.
his vlogs all the time that he will take the craziest bump when he has to, and then he plays it like, why do I always do that? But yeah, and I was like, but like
Yeah,
like
and
give it like
the wild
I don't
part
know.
too is the wild part is, and I don't know if he said it in his blogs, but those are I hope I'm not revealing too much here, but most of that is always his idea. So like
Yeah.
no one ever suggests for him to do that. It's always his idea. That's how crazy he is.
I honestly, it sounds about right from how I know Sammy, so it makes sense. You got to face Lee Moriarty this past weekend at Ring of Honor at the return show. What are your thoughts
Yes.
on Lee Moriarty, and how'd you think about that match?
Well, oddly enough, just like I was supposed to do this interview with you before and it got
Yeah.
rescheduled, I was supposed to have a match two times with Lee Moriarty that got rescheduled. One, the
Oh
show
no
got
way. Okay.
canceled. Yeah, one time the show just got straight canceled, and the other time, which was for a Jonathan Gresham show called Terminus, because he runs his own
Yeah.
shows. I was supposed to wrestle him there, but a big snowstorm came. On top of that, I also got sick. So like it was just like a perfect storm of bad things that led to me not being able to wrestle Lee Moriarty. But third time is the charm. And actually, when I got to step into the ring with him at the Ring of Honor show, I'm glad it didn't happen the other two times. As crazy as that sounds, and I hate to take anything away from the fans, but especially the ones who were going to be in attendance for both of those opportunities. But I'm glad it happened on the Ring of Honor for the world to see. And yeah, Lee is awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome.
Yeah, no, it was a great match. I'm curious though, like when you heard initially back, a few like what was it, like 6, 7 months ago that Ring of Honor was going to be taking a hiatus, and a lot of people thought Ring of Honor was going to be gone for good. There was like this weird around Final Battle was this weird thing where like Ring of Honor was openly saying like, hey, we're going to take a hiatus. We will be back for Supercard of Honor. We're promising that, but yeah, a lot of people felt like, oh, they're gone, even though they said they're coming back around WrestleMania weekend. People were like, oh, it's over. Ring of Honor's gone forever, and it kind of felt that way with the messages we got at Final Battle, all the kind of messages from former Ring of Honor stars. Like it kind of felt like something crazy was going on here. And even though they were announcing like Hall of Fame inductees and all this stuff was still happening, people still thought like Ring of Honor is gone. I'm like, I don't know how like all these websites and stuff don't realize like I don't think it's fully gone. But what was your initial reaction when you heard about the hiatus and that they were going to be
Well,
releasing everybody for the time being?
I'm glad you first mentioned your thoughts and what the popular opinion was, which is it was going to be gone.
Yeah.
I think the wrestlers themselves had a bit of mixed reactions as well. I sadly, and I don't speak for everyone, I just speak for myself. I sadly was one of the people who thought the company was officially done. I
Okay.
really didn't think. I really, and not that I didn't have faith in the company. I really didn't think that it was going to bounce back from releasing everybody and trying to do some type of revamp. In my heart, I felt like if this was a real revamp, why do you need to let everybody go first? Can't we figure out another way to do this? So yeah, I and like I said, if you talk to other people on the roster, and everybody was impacted different too, like to be on a Zoom call and find out that you no longer have a job,
Yeah.
um, is a tremendous blow.
They just had
For a
everybody on
lot
a
of
Zoom
people.
call.
Yeah, it was the easiest. I believe they thought that was the easiest way to do it, just because of the pandemic and not many people are traveling. The easiest
Yeah.
way is to schedule this call where everybody has to be on, and we can all find out at the same time. So yeah, I was under the impression, and I don't know if I was alone on this, but I didn't think that they were going to be able to bounce back from that.
So this might be like a two-folded question then, but like
Okay, okay.
how did it really make you feel when you found that out? Because Ring of Honor, like what, like if I was to ask you, like, what does Ring of Honor mean to you? And I know your illustrious history with Ring of Honor. That's what you started. Like, we're going to talk about Samoa Joe and their mentorship and all of that. Like, what did Ring of Honor mean to you? And then how did that make you feel when you found that out then?
I was crushed, to say the least. And I think we all felt the same thing. First, you're crushed. Oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. and then there's panic,
Yeah.
because you realize you're out of a job, and not only out of a job in that moment, but also you have to realize that in the wrestling world, there was a massive amount of releases. So now you're in a wrestling world where the market for free agents is oversaturated. Like
Yeah.
it's not like just you got released and you can possibly go somewhere else. There is a massive list of people who are available, which makes it even tougher for you to get a job somewhere else. So that was my initial thoughts. Heartbreak, oh man, and then there's panic. And my heart went out to a few people on the Ring of Honor roster. Some had just moved, some had just bought houses, some have wife and kids that depend on them. Oh, it was heartbreaking, especially after being at Ring of Honor all that time. I really thought that at the time, I thought I was going to end my career at Ring of Honor. I would have been there. They treated me so well throughout the years. Even when I had offers to go other places, I still stuck around because they had treated me so well. And I loved Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor to me meant wrestling. It meant my
Yeah.
life. My family loved it. Man, I remember my dad went to the first Ring of Honor show with me. Oh man, he had seen so many shows, more than the average fan. I think he went to more shows than the average Ring of Honor fan just because he was traveling with me. It's my fam, like, yeah, just Ring of Honor just represented to me family. Not to
Yeah.
say that AEW doesn't, it's just I was there for so long. Being at
Yeah.
AEW definitely feels like family. I know everybody from the first day I got to AEW. Every time you turn around a corner, I saw somebody that I hadn't seen in a while, and we
Yeah.
hug and we have a 10-minute conversation about the last time I saw them. And then, before you know it, I'm getting rushed. Oh, you got to do this part because now you've taken up so much time saying hello to everybody. And it was so many people that I didn't even get to say hi to everybody. So definitely from the first day, AEW, I felt at home. But what I'm trying to say is, when I was at Ring of Honor, you asked what Ring of Honor meant to me at the time. It really meant family. And I'm a big family person.
No, of course. I also find that little tidbit there very fascinating. When I had Brian Danielson on the show, I asked him that question. I'm like, it must be really. I'm like, the one thing that I noticed about AEW, which for me, who's like, I've been a long time fan of professional wrestling, so like, I'm like, I knew what the independent scene was like in the early 2000s, and I'm like, for him, and it's similar to you, as you just said, like walking to that AEW locker room, like, there's a lot of people that you came up with that you hadn't seen for years. And
Yeah.
Brian gave us a story about how, in the wrestling business, it's very common to be like, okay, I'll see you down the road. I'll talk to you later. And then he started to believe that see you down the road was never going to come. And it all came full circle because now he's walked into that AEW locker room and seeing all these guys that he worked with in the independents prior to his WWE career. And is that very similar for
Right.
you with a lot of people that you went in there
Yes.
that you came up with, right?
100%. And to touch on that, it's so wild that, like for Brian or for myself, we could be at like a Ring of Honor and be there for a few years. And Ring of Honor is running shows, let's say every 2 weeks a show. And so for every 2 weeks, you're seeing the same wrestlers and you're seeing
Yeah.
them sometimes more than your family. Because, especially for me, I lived in Florida. My family lived in New Jersey. I'm seeing these wrestlers more than my family. And then, a wrestler leaves to go to a different company, or you leave to go to a different company. And those people that you saw every week, you no longer see them. Doesn't mean that you don't cherish their friendship. You do miss them, but so much time goes by because you're busy trying to make it in this rat race of a life,
Yeah.
where everyone's just
Yeah.
worried about trying to make it, and you're focused on that and your family and you still love those people that you used to see. And then when you finally get to see them again, for most of us, it's like time never passed. It's like you were never apart. You just pick right
Yeah.
up where you left off. And it's the coolest feeling. I don't even know if I'm explaining it good enough, but it's the coolest feeling to not see someone for years that you used to see all the time. And then
Yeah.
now you get to see them, and it's like after the show, where are we going to eat? You know, like
Yeah,
you're back
yeah,
to hanging out all the time.
and I think that's the coolest experience I've thought about them. Like, there's a lot, because that locker room specifically, yes, there's a lot of young stars there that are new and coming up, but there's a lot of guys that define that early era of Ring of Honor, the early era of that independence in the early 2000s, like, and everyone just like reuniting again. I'm like, that's really cool, you know.
Right. It's so cool.
That being said, what? Yeah. What was it during that period when Ring of Honor was on its hiatus that drew you to AEW? Was that something that they reached out prior while you were still in Ring of Honor, and then the conversation started up again? Like, what drew you to AEW?
Well, while I was at Ring of Honor and what I like to call the mass exodus happened of the Bucks and all those guys leaving. Right before the mass exodus, I was in a renegotiation phase with my Ring of Honor contract. Never in my wildest dreams did I think about or imagine leaving. And then during that phase, I was approached by the Bucks, and I was explained exactly what was going on, and I was given a chance to go with the Bucks to AEW, but I chose to stick around at Ring of Honor just because, not because I didn't believe in the Bucks or what they were doing. I wholeheartedly believe, and I even told them I'll be there eventually. But Ring of Honor had treated me so well, and with that mass exodus, they were going to be in deep trouble if some people didn't stick around. So that's why I stuck around. So, but yeah, straight from the early stages of the AEW being formed, I was offered a spot, so to speak. So yeah, I knew about it from the very early stages, and
so when the hiatus,
now.
So when the Ring of Honor hiatus happened, like, you kind of just knew, like, oh, I guess I'll reach out and negotiate with them again and come to AEW. Like,
that was immediately my thought. Although the only change in what you said is I wouldn't call it a hiatus, because at the time it did not feel
you
like
thought
a
it was
hiatus.
over.
It felt like,
Yeah.
yes, we all did.
No, I mean, initially I did too, but like, as things kept happening, I'm like, now there's the Hall of Fame. Like, there's something happening here. Now this is happening. I was like,
And you
I
know
guess
what?
they're
Every
not.
time, just to be honest, when I saw that Hall of Fame stuff, I still was like, why are they doing this?
Yeah.
I just was like, this is not going to lead to anything. Like,
Yeah.
even then I was like, no, it's not happening. It's not happening.
So then I guess the next appropriate question to ask you is like, what was your reaction when you found out that Tony Khan had purchased Ring of Honor?
Well, okay, so there was a couple reactions. One, I was
Okay.
shocked.
Yeah.
I was so shocked. I was like, wow, that was out of left field. I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
Although there are some footage in that library that they would Stone Cold.
Yeah, that's right. That was a ringtone.
I was gonna say, wait, is he joining? We're gonna be joined by Stone Cold. That's
Could you
so
imagine?
cool.
Wow, I should probably cut that out, but you made it funny.
No, keep it in, please. So yeah, my thoughts when I heard Tony Khan bought it. One, I was shocked. Although I did think there was a couple matches and such in the Ring of Honor library that AEW would benefit from owning.
Yeah.
And the second thought, I had extreme joy in the fact that there was a possibility that a lot of my friends who were out of jobs would now have jobs.
Yeah.
That's still up in the air, unfortunately, but I don't run things. Hopefully this will lead to a lot of my friends who really need jobs right now can get their jobs back, so to speak, with Ring of Honor. So those are my two instant thoughts. Shocked as heck,
Yeah.
because it just felt like that was out of nowhere. What? And then, oh my God, please! I hope some of my friends who really need their jobs because they moved or bought houses or have families and kids depending on them. Hopefully, they can get their jobs back or an opportunity for something.
So like Ring of Honor was your home. Ring of Honor feels like family to you. You had this inept loyalty to Ring of Honor, like just loyal to a fault that even when the Bucks reached out to you in the early days of AEW's inception, you were like, no, I'm gonna stick with Ring of Honor. They a lot of you guys are leaving in this exodus. Like I should, a couple of us should probably stick around and help out with the Ring of Honor situation here.
Right.
So like it must be cool that now, like, it's weird how life works, but technically, yes, you are employed by AEW and you did end up there, but you're also employed by Ring of Honor and you are still there. Like, what are the chances that it worked out in your favor that you have all of it now?
I just, my whole wrestling career has worked out like that. I definitely think that my whole wrestling career, not just my wrestling career, but life in general, can be described like my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah,
My favorite movie of all time is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I
yeah.
think that I am Charlie, and I think that I won the golden ticket. Too many people know just how lucky and fortunate I've been. I even, to get into the wrestling business, I won a contest. I'm not
What?
sure if many people realize that. I won a
Well, elaborate on that.
contest.
Elaborate on the contest. What was this contest?
A company by the name of
We're talking
Jersey
to the
Hall.
real life Charlie of Charlie in the Chocolate Factory right now. This is
Yes,
crazy.
a company by the name of Jersey Hall Pro Wrestling.
Yeah,
During MTV Tough Enough,
yeah.
WWF. The company Jersey All Pro Wrestling, run by a guy that we called Fat Frank, and that was his nickname given to himself. We didn't
Okay.
come up with that name. He loved that name. Well, anyway, he was a big fan of MTV Tough Enough, and he said, "We're going to have a contest of our own. We don't have the money to put you guys up in a house for weeks and do a slow elimination, but we're going to do this contest in one day, and we're going to pick three winners. And if you win, we're going to train you to be a professional wrestler for free."
Yeah.
And when I heard that, like, it was like the sound from the heavens. I remember thinking, "This is my chance." Like, at school, all I did was read my wrestling magazines at lunch, and man, this was my chance. Everything I did was wrestling. I had the action figures, and I remember explaining it to my parents, and my dad was okay. My mom was a little on the fence
Yeah.
about it, but I did the contest. In one day, they would show you how to land and how to run and hit the ropes, and you had to cut a promo.
Yeah.
And there was one more thing, and whoever did these four things the best, they would pick winners out of that. And oddly enough, I was not one of the three winners.
Oh
And I
wow.
remember I didn't get picked, so I'm walking back to my dad, who took off work. He took a half
Oh wow.
day to bring me. Yeah. As I'm walking back to my
He was
dad,
your
they
Grandpa
make an
Joe.
yes. Yes, yes. Uh, as I'm walking back to my dad, they make an announcement and they say, "We weren't going to pick this person because they're too young." I was only 15, about to turn 16. They
Yeah.
said he's too young and we weren't going to pick him, but we changed our mind and we're making a fourth winner. And I was the fourth winner.
Oh
And I'm
wow.
the only one wrestling today who won that contest. Everybody
That's
else
wild.
is unfortunately no longer wrestling. But yeah, my life, not just in wrestling, but in life, I was completely blessed and lucky. I got an amazing support system. My parents and my family loved wrestling. My parents had six kids,
Oh
and they
wow.
all loved wrestling. They've all been to my shows. For the first 6 years of my wrestling career, my parents went to every show I had. Even the first time Ring of Honor said, "You know what? We're going to get you a plane ticket." I
Yeah.
graduated from driving all those long trips
Yeah.
to a plane ticket. And I come home and I'm like, they're gonna fly me. And my parents were like, "Well, what about us?" And I go, "Well, they're not gonna fly you. They're flying me." And they're like, "Well, we want to go." So they were like, "We'll rent a van to come on." So
Yeah.
I had to call Ring of Honor, and the booker at the time was Gabe
Yeah.
Sapolsky, and I had to call him and tell him, "I don't think I need this ticket. My parents want to drive." And of course, he was ecstatic. "I don't have to buy you
Yeah.
plane ticket?
100%.
Yes,
Yeah.
obviously. Right. But yeah, what a wonderful support system I've had. I've just been lucky at every turn, and now I'm at AEW. It's wild,
It's you hit
wild,
you
wild,
really are
wild.
Charlie of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. That's cool. You had an Uncle Joe. You won. You got into wrestling from a contest. You landed everything at the end somehow. That's cool. Everything
It's
you wanted.
amazing.
You
It's
made decisions
amazing.
that you made decisions like you probably questioned, like when they started flying with drinking the bubbly water, and you still landed exactly where you're supposed to be.
I made it. I made it.
You made it,
It's
yeah. Are you
unreal.
excited
Unreal.
though that are you excited that the Ring of Honor library is now with AEW and they can show like old clips of you guys? Like the fact that like we'll talk about it in a second, but the fact that you're now kind of entering a feud with Samoa Joe, they have access to all that content. And he was your
Yes,
mentor.
yes.
Like
In
that
real
must be
life.
really yeah, and that must be really cool. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about it right now. So you first things first, I do want to say you mentioned earlier that your good friend Jonathan Gresham. The show Supercard of Honor ended with you attacking Jonathan Gresham along with Sonjay Dutt. So, good friend. We're going to use that term loosely at the moment, but
Right. If he was really my good friend, he would have given me a title shot. You're right.
yeah. So the two questions that come out of that. One question is, where did the inclusion of Sonjay Dutt come? I know you guys have a rich history as well through many different companies. You guys have been together. He came out as if he was one of the producers or agents, and then started stomping on Gresham along with you. We'll ask that first, actually. So where did the involvement with Sanjay come from?
That idea was presented to me, and it was quite a shock to me when it was presented. And all I can really think of is the fact that we're always together. We ride to the shows together. Sometimes when my match is done, I could go back to the hotel, but I
Yeah,
stayed till the very end because Sonjay, who's one of the producers, he's got to stay till the end. I just think it's a case of everyone sees us together and they know that we're real life friends, and they're like, man, these two would be cool together.
yeah,
That's as much info as I can give you because this idea was just presented to me, and I was like, well, I mean, why would I turn that down? I mean, I would love
yeah,
to do that. Work with my best friend. Come on,
yeah.
that's easy. But I really think maybe it was sparked because we're just whenever you see us at AEW, we're always together.
Fair enough. That actually makes a lot of sense. And the second part is then, I guess, with the return of Ring of Honor and attacking Jonathan Gresham, is your intention for the Ring of Honor World Championship again?
I think I really think that I'm right at home at Ring of Honor when I'm the champion.
Yeah,
And if AEW is going to start up Ring of Honor again, to me it's only makes sense that I'm in that world title picture since I've been at Ring of Honor so long and the most combined reigning
yeah,
longest world champion. I definitely think you can't talk about Ring of Honor without mentioning Jay Lethal in the Ring of Honor world title picture. I think so. Yeah, I think it's just a natural thing that just had to happen.
yeah. No, fair enough. And then I guess following that was the return to Ring of Honor, but a debut for AEW, Samoa Joe. He made that surprise return. You guys were in the ring. You just beat up your good friend with your other good friend, and then appeared, then appeared Samoa Joe, who was also a mentor and a good friend of yours. You probably thought the return of Ring of Honor was a blessing, but it's turned into a lot more than that. How's the reaction to Samoa Joe? Like, what was the thought process there? Are you excited? He's your mentor. He's a real life mentor. You said, tell us a little bit about your relationship with Samoa Joe.
I love him dearly. And I don't even know why, but he took a liking to me at a very young age when I thought I knew more than I actually knew.
Yeah,
And I was still trying to figure things out, and he saw that, and I don't know, something about, and I didn't go out hanging out with the guys after the show, any of the shows, because I traveled with my family.
Yeah.
So it's not like we hung out after the shows that often and we developed that bond. Really, all that he had really saw of me was anytime I was at the show, because I would, you know, all my on the road wrestling stories are, yeah, so we went to this restaurant with my family after the show.
Yeah.
People have these wild after show stories, and the whole first 6 years of my career, I didn't have any of those stories that didn't pertain to my family. But yeah, somewhere along the way, he took a liking to me, and I remember just one day he's like, where are you sitting? Where's your stuff? My stuff's over there. "Yeah, so you just sit next to me. Nobody's sitting here." And then I sat next to him, and then just it started out a lot of, "Hey, why are you doing that? Don't do that." So in the beginning, if you're not realizing what he's doing, it's a lot of, "Why am I sitting next to him? He just telling me what I'm doing wrong the whole time."
Yeah.
But obviously, I didn't see it that way. I knew exactly what was going on, and we became friends, and we would roll around in the ring sometimes before the shows. And then I remember my fondest memory of back then is Samoa Joe is very skilled when it comes to grappling and submission work, and I remember I had this little bet with him that I could make him tap out.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how it started, and he accepted the bet. And at random, various times throughout the day, and I'm just so fortunate that I never hurt him by mistake or he didn't hurt me, but I would attempt to take him down to the ground at just like not opportune moments for him, like where he's in a conversation with somebody and I come out of nowhere. Like, I never did tap him out, but
Oh
that's
wow.
like the fondest man. We had so much fun together, and he taught me a lot about what is acceptable to take as far as people talking to you. Don't let nobody talk to you like that, or how to talk to others, especially when it comes to wrestling and wrestling bookings. And why are you doing this in the ring? Don't do that. Or you did this well. You got to keep doing more stuff like that. And man, he just, I don't know why he did, but he took a liking to me and he helped me tremendously. And I will forever be in his debt. And I actually got to work with him uh, against him. I mean, we had multiple tag matches where we were on the
Yeah.
same team and we were tag champs, but um, we never got to work singles matches together that often. I think maybe a total of 2 times.
Oh wow.
So him and yeah, and the thing about it is that was back when I didn't know nearly as much as I know now.
Yeah.
So I can't wait. Man, seeing him back, so many things ran through my head, but one of the first things was, please, oh please, let me get to wrestle with him one on
Yeah.
one. Um, because I think it would, man, I know way more than I knew before, and I just want to show him that how much he helped me. And yeah, I can't wait to a day where we can have singles match together. I'm really looking forward to it.
And the angle right there, you gotta promise that you're gonna make him finally tap after all these years. That's what just cut that promo that you used to try to make him tap all these times that never happened, but I'm finally gonna make you tap.
Yes, yes, yes.
There you go.
Yeah, I think I'll use the figure 4 this time, right?
Yeah. If there's anything, oh,
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think
like
it's a
some
great
of the
story though,
coolest.
and
It
yeah,
is
and
cool,
it's
and I think
yeah,
it's not something that someone had to sit down at a table and write. This is real life stuff, like
yeah.
just like, man, yeah, it's just
You just
it
start talking about how
just
you've been
falls
losing
right into
sleep
place.
over it for years, and you think about how you want to make him tap, and it had to happen. Now I finally get the chance. But
I wish somebody had caught some of those moments on camera of me.
that would have been epic.
And there was one time where I would just come out of nowhere as fast as I could, jump right onto his back, and like just the stupid stuff we were doing. I could have really hurt him or gotten hurt, But he never got mad, never got upset. It was, man, sometimes he felt like my dad. Sometimes he felt like my oldest brother, always looking out for me. And then sometimes he just felt like my best friend that I went to high school with. And it was always at the right time. He was always that right role at the right time for me.
Yeah.
Man, I can't say enough good things about him.
And it's super cool that you made a good point, though. It's super cool that's happening now, and you've had so much experience and you've had so much success. And now when you do get to wrestle him, you can, after it's all said and done, you can be like, I am part of who I am now because of your mentorship. Like, what I can do in there, partially because of you and you taking me under your wing and all of that. And that's a super cool thing on the flip side, right? Like, if it happened before, it might not have been exactly the same because you're so much more confident in your teachings.
His teachings didn't just last throughout the Ring of Honor. It was my whole life. We went from Ring of Honor together to Impact Wrestling together. Then I moved to Florida and we hung out together, like outside of wrestling. Didn't have to be a wrestling show and us hanging out after wrestling at, a restaurant or whatever. Actually, man, his teachings never stopped. Even when he went to WWE, I still lived in Florida, so we still got to hang out. So it was. I should have to pay. I should have to pay money for the learning experience. Sorry, what was that?
I said the crazy thing is that you've only worked against each other almost like 2 times. Like that's the crazy part. So like that's what I mean. So if you work with them now, it's like all of that time, even the friendship that lasted the entire time, it's like it's come like, look, this is it now.
Right.
And again, to your point, that's a very nice thing to say. Like most people would pay for this type of mentorship. Like they would. Yeah.
That's how I describe my whole Impact Wrestling career as well. I should have to pay for that. As when I got into Impact Wrestling, I'd only been wrestling for maybe 2.5 years. And I'm in the locker room with Kurt Angle and Ric Flair and AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels and Sting. I got to wrestle Kurt Angle live on pay-per-view. I got to learn promos from Ric Flair. I got to learn backstage politics, so to speak, in and out of the ring from Kevin Nash. One of the best.
Nobody better, bro.
I literally, that's how I describe my Impact Wrestling career. It was the greatest learning experience that anybody with my experience level could have asked for. There wasn't enough money I could have paid for something like that. It was amazing.
You mentioned something earlier. We'll talk about Impact really quickly, and I want to come back to AEW, but there's a couple things I did want to talk to you about when it came to Impact. It was just more character stuff. You mentioned earlier that you wish that somebody caught some of those clips on camera with you and Joe. Yes. I happened to be at a WrestleCon one year by accident. I was supposed to be somewhere else. Plans fell through, and I ended up at WrestleCon, which ended up being better than me being at the other place because I ended up introducing myself to a lot of people that I never would have had the chance to at the time. But I remember standing in line to meet Ric Flair. And I've got to help Ric Flair's social media team with Ric Flair's social media for a bit. So I was like, it'd be nice to properly introduce myself. And I fortunately got to record this clip of you talking to Flair and Ric Flair, and it's gone viral multiple times, and nobody ever credits me. But it was Ric Flair's wearing his red suit, and he's sitting there, and you come up, and you came to just say what's up to him and say hi, and then you did the impression. He was like, keep going, and you did the whole. The longest line for the oldest ride, and he was like so excited to see you doing it, this and that. And I happened to catch that on video. It was me, guys. And I put it out.
Wow,
I put it out there for the world. And
I've seen that clip multiple times.
Yeah,
that was you. You recorded
that? Was me.
Right.
I recorded that. Yeah, 110%. That was me. And I have even the longer clip of it, I believe. But and it always reminded me because I grew up an Impact fan as well, and I know you talked about it with Chris Van Vliet. Shout out to Chris, great guy. But one of the most viral clips that ever can go on social media, being a social media guy, is the woo off with you and Ric Flair. That woo off segment with you and Ric Flair, even amongst people that aren't even the biggest wrestling fans, like they're like, this is the greatest thing ever. How did that come about? Like, I know you've spoken about it before, but just one more time, like, how did that come
Right.
about for the people that might be listening to this and hearing about
For
it
the
for the first
first
time?
time. Right,
Yeah.
right. Okay, so it started because we, oddly enough, Impact Wrestling did a tour in the UK, and on one of the off days, got a little boring, and everyone
Yeah.
ended up at the bar downstairs. I'm not a big drinker, so one or two drinks, and I'm already done.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember the Dudleys were feeding me these drinks, and that is how I found out I could do a Ric. That's how I never even attempted a Ric Flair impression. I only
Yeah.
ever attempted Macho Man. But oddly enough, having a few drinks is how I found out. And how else would you find that out besides having a few drinks?
Yeah.
That you could do a Ric Flair impression. And everybody loved it. And they would make me do it all the time. And then one day, as luck would have it, this guy shows up. And by this guy, I mean Ric Flair. Like, what are the odds of that? What are the odds? So obviously, before he got there, someone told him that I could do this impression. I
Yeah.
knew he was going to make me do it as soon as I saw him, and he did, of course. But the coolest part about it is he absolutely loved it. He didn't think it was me like making fun of him. He thought it was so cool that someone went out of their way to learn all of his lines and his mannerisms. And every time he would bring someone different to the show, he would make me do it for them. And I do believe that the whole feud that I had with him was all his idea. I think he said, "Hey, I want to work with this kid," and they did it. Because
Yeah.
I mean, when you're Ric Flair, you write your own ticket. There was
Yeah.
nothing that he was going to do that he didn't want to do there.
100%.
So that's how that all came about. And I like again, I'm Charlie from the Chocolate Factory. I got that golden ticket. And Flair wanted to work with me, and I loved every second of it. It was terrifying,
Yeah.
especially because promo wise, I had no idea what we were going to do because he doesn't let anybody write his promos for him.
Yeah.
It must be all off the top, must be all improv.
Was most of that
And
improv?
all of it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Oh,
all
wow.
of it. Because he wouldn't let them write anything, and because he won't let them write anything, how can you write something for me if he won't? So like
Yeah.
all of it was terrifying because Impact had never given me a chance to cut a live promo in front of a live crowd. And now I
Yeah.
have to do it with Ric Flair. Oh my God.
Being
Just
Ric Flair.
right.
Yeah.
I'm so fortunate that that all worked out. It just now thinking about it still gives me a little bit of anxiety. And I remember one time before I went through the curtain, my hands were like tingling. They were
Yeah.
like numb before I went out. And Simon Diamond, I
Yeah.
remember he came up to me. He was one of the agents, and he was like, what's wrong?" And I explained, "Of course, I'm nervous." And he said, "Well, here's the thing you got to remember: you're only doing this because what you were doing backstage was so funny and entertaining."
Yeah.
He said, "Don't do anything that you wouldn't do backstage. Just go out there and pretend you're backstage." And Terry Taylor said the same thing to me as well. I don't know if you watched WCW, but the Cat, remember Ernest
I'm a big
the Cat?
WCW fan. The cat, Ernest Miller.
Terry Taylor told me that the boys in the locker room came up to him and said, "You got to put the Cat on TV. You got to make him cut
Yeah.
promos. He is hilarious backstage." And he goes, "Okay." So he wrote a segment where the Cat could do a promo, and it wasn't that good. And then Terry Taylor said, "I went up to him. I said, I'm giving you this promo because everybody is telling me that when you're in the locker room, you're hilarious. But you
Yeah.
went out there and that wasn't really that funny. I'll give you another chance. Whatever you do in the locker room to make everybody come up to me, please do that."
Yeah.
And
So no, and that's that's really cool because it's like sometimes we've heard stories in the past of people that were really entertaining and funny backstage but never translated on television, and that wasn't the
right,
case with you. And I
right,
think the crazy part of it all too is that, like, you mentioned it really briefly there, was the fact that, like, you didn't just do the impression, like, you had the mannerisms down. You the movement and the dropping the elbow on the jacket and the knee, and like that's what made it work. And the fact now that like if anyone's listening to this, you go watch it now. When you go watch it, realize that was all improv, and just makes it so much more great. And also the fact that you said that Ric Flair loved it, which I can believe because, like I said in that video clip that I recorded, like he was genuinely like enjoying you doing it, and visually you can see I remember him when he was like turning to his wife at the time. He was like, "Look, isn't this so funny? Like this is great, right?" Like
yes. He would always say, "Oh, the kid does me better than I do myself."
Yeah. And then the one other one, I guess, the one that's overly popular and everybody knows is Black Machismo. The Black Machismo character where you were parodying the Macho Man Randy Savage. Obviously, Macho Man Randy Savage is my favorite of all time. You know, I grew up with who I saw. My brother was an 80s kid, so I grew up on a bunch of old tapes and stuff of 80s wrestling. And as much as he was a Hulkamaniac, I was just drawn to the Macho Man. I just was fully drawn to the Macho Man. And as a little 90s kid, the colors and everything, like just drawn to the Macho Man. He was my favorite, right? So when you start doing the Black Machismo stuff, it's almost like we got to have a little bit of Macho Man, even though Macho Man had retired. And I thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and you're right. Everything about the Macho Man was just made to draw in a little kid, just make them mesmerized. The voice, the colors, the tassels, jumping off the top rope. I mean, it was all designed and geared towards captivating that fan. Man, it was incredible, and it worked on me. I tell you, it worked on me. But I really feel like the Black Machismo and the Ric Flair together, mainly the Black Machismo, though, it's really what put Jay Lethal on the wrestling map. I think before I did any of that stuff, I was okay, still learning, still trying to figure out who Jay Lethal was, trying to take everybody's advice and make something with it. And then here we are in Impact Wrestling. And like I said, the greatest learning experience. I got to learn how to open up out of my shell. One of the toughest parts for me in the beginning was I didn't want to look stupid or sound stupid. And because of that, it kept me more reserved. But once you're no longer afraid, which is what Kevin Nash taught me, once you're no longer afraid of looking or sounding stupid, then you have so much freedom and you're just more comfortable. And that's what that whole Black Machismo character taught me. It brought me out of my shell. It made me less worried about what other people were thinking of me and my promos and my in-ring work. And and then the Flair thing really helped me with promos in general, not being afraid to off the cuff say things because nothing was written. Man, like I said, the greatest learning experience, and all that stuff helped prepare me for the role that I would assume in Ring of Honor as the number one guy for a little while anyway. And being the face of a company and the champion, and it all prepared me for that. And when I look back and think about everything I got to do, especially in that learning experience at Impact Wrestling, which was a great run. And I saw, not to get off topic, I saw the other day someone tweet about, man, AEW is looking a lot more like Impact Wrestling. Or they're saying something like that. And I was like, you know what? They're right, because Impact Wrestling at the time, when it was around, had the greatest freaking roster in the world. How they fumbled the ball due to various decisions, business-wise, that were out of a lot of our control. But man, Impact Wrestling really did have, at the time, one of the best rosters in the freaking world.
100%. And honestly, anytime, once again, a little off topic, but anytime wrestling fans, and I'm part of that fandom, and I engage with the fans on a daily, hourly basis. Anytime I get AEW is like WCW or AEW is like Impact, I'm guessing a lot of you weren't alive when those things were thriving. Because when they were thriving, they were great.
Right.
You know, so you just know how everything ended, but you don't remember. Like if you were around when WCW was around, like WCW at its peak was great. If you were around when Impact was putting you all on strides, Impact at its greatest was great. So you can,
and
you guys are just looking about him.
Right. My oldest brother, he didn't really like wrestling. He only watched it or liked it because I did it. He didn't
Yeah.
go out of his way to watch wrestling, but at WCW's peak, Goldberg did it for him. Somebody who
Yeah.
was not a wrestling fan naturally and didn't go out of their way to watch wrestling and only watched a little bit of it because his brother did it and he wanted to
Yeah.
support his brother. Yeah, WCW at its peak, man, Goldberg was like that drew in someone who wasn't even a wrestling fan. So like, yeah, you're absolutely right, man. When those companies were really going, they were the hottest ticket, the hottest thing around at the time.
Yeah.
Like when
I
Kurt
do want
Angle
to ask
came, oh man, Samoa Joe versus Kurt Angle, that was
that
like,
headbutt. I remember.
man, oh yes, that
that
headbutt. Man,
headbutt. I
what a
remember. But I did want to
what a
ask you about the
cool
Black
time to be around.
Machismo thing really quickly, though. The one thing I want to ask about that, and I want to really go back to AEW and we'll wrap things up. But
Okay.
the Black Machismo thing. Did the Macho Man ever comment on it? Did you ever meet him? Did you hear anything he's ever said about it? Did he know about it? Like,
The Black Machismo character led to me becoming I will we're really good friends. As good as you can be before you become best friends, because I don't talk to him
yeah,
every day and we don't hang out every day because he moved. But I'm incredibly good friends with Lanny Poffo, the
okay,
Macho Man's brother. Um,
yeah,
so I didn't get to meet the Macho Man guy. I got to Impact Wrestling right after Macho Man did his thing there, and then it was
yeah,
gone. So I had just missed him. But I did get to talk to him on the phone 2 or 3 times. Unfortunately, the first time I talked to him, I didn't believe that it was him because I
okay,
thought I can't be the only one with a good Macho Man impression. Somebody's trying to trick me. I'll just talk to this person. So the first time I talked to him, I didn't believe it was him. Um, but I did get to talk to the Macho Man, and he said that he doesn't watch much TV, but he saw my stuff on YouTube, and Lanny showed him some stuff, and he really did appreciate and enjoy it. And that was touching, but I really wish that first phone call, because that was the longest conversation we had, that
yeah,
first phone call. But that was the call where I didn't believe that it was really him. So I wish I
yeah,
could go back and have a real conversation. But yeah, no, I got to talk to him and he liked it. And I'm really good friends with Lanny Poffo, his brother. We talk all the time. And yeah, just I got to do so much because of that Macho Man character.
yeah. No, and I
I
love, and
never
then,
would in
for
my
those,
wildest dreams would have thought that I'd become really good friends with the Macho Man's brother.
I know, and that's why, like I said, you guys did that. I mean, I was going to say, like, you guys did that whole thing and all in together and the lead up to it. So, like, you and Lanny, I believe it. Let's get back to
Yes.
AEW. Um, you've worked with Sammy, you've worked with Ricky Starks, you've worked with a lot of this younger talent that you might not have worked with a ton beforehand. Is there anybody you haven't worked with yet that you're really excited to get in the ring with on that younger half of
Yes.
AEW?
Oh, the younger half? Everybody.
Or
Oh, I thought you were
no,
going to
generally,
ask me.
go generally. Who have you not been in the ring with yet, or waiting to get back in the ring with that you haven't
I
yet
have
in AEW?
not been in the ring, and I was a big fan of Chris Jericho, especially during Wide to Jericho
Yeah,
and the big countdown. I remember me and my brother going nuts. And we would me and my brother memorized some of Jericho's promos, and oh man. And I remember there was at one point where he had someone in the walls of Jericho, and he would just be screaming, "I'm the king of the world! I'm
yeah,
the king of the world!" I said that for years. So yeah, Jericho's definitely on the top of the list for me, and but just getting to be around him and work with him, if that's all I can do, then I'm fine with that because it's been a pleasure talking with him and him sharing some ideas with me, and man, he's been nothing but great to
yeah,
me, and it's been incredible. But if I do get to be in the ring with him, that would be the icing on the cake.
yeah.
But yeah,
I
as far
mean,
as
you are
younger,
you are
that
Charlie of the Chocolate Factory. It might happen.
it might. Hey, I got to be on his podcast. That was pretty
You
fun.
got that golden ticket, you know. Yeah,
But yeah, as far as the younger talent, yeah, I just want to be in there with any and everybody. And the coolest thing is, I never got to work with or meet Sammy Guevara before I got here, or never got to work with or meet Ricky Starks. I didn't get to meet or work
Yeah,
with Lee Moriarty either, and that was,
yeah,
those two other shows never happened. That's why, but yeah, just any and everybody. I love stepping into the ring and learning something new from my opponent or seeing how well you mesh up. And some people don't mesh well together, and some people frown upon that. And I'm always interested to see who I mesh well with and who I don't, because I
yeah,
like to think, and Macho Man would say it too. He'd go, "I'm a chameleon."
yeah.
I'd like to think that I'm a chameleon, and what that means to me is, I can mesh well and work with anybody. I can, man. So yeah, I'm interested in being in the ring with everybody, any and everybody.
So I'll ask you this question. I was going to ask you what your goals are for 2022, but I feel like this is more of a fitting question since we've talked a lot about Samoa Joe and your relationship with him and younger talent AEW that you have to work with. You are now in a place in your career, so much experience, so many years on the road, different companies, that you could be considered a mentor for somebody, or you could be
Mm.
considered a mentor for the younger talent. So that leads me to ask you if you were to give any advice that you would carry over from either Joe or your years on the road that you could give the younger talent right now. If you could go to someone in that locker room and tell them to sit next to you and not be so mean to them, but like give them a word of advice. Because that's one way to do it. But if you saw someone doing something and you had the opportunity to give them some advice of like, if I could go back and talk to my younger self, this is what I would tell him. What would you want that younger talent in AEW to learn from you?
So we're gonna chalk this up to a personal experience. I think I was, and I don't want this to sound bad, but the first thing that pops in my head was I had a very big problem trying to I don't know if please everybody is the right word, but I took a strong consideration into everything that not only the wrestlers said and the advice they gave, but the things that the fans would say. Um, and one bad comment from a fan doesn't represent what they all think, although it's very easy to think that because you're the one seeing those negative things because it's directed at you. Um, and I believe that there was even some kind of study, and AEW does such a great job. We have these seminars where they talk to us about stuff like this. And I think it was mentioned in one of those seminars that just like the human psyche, it takes 10 good comments or 10 good, affirmations to erase one negative comment or vice versa. And I thought that was so powerful to actually hear that out loud because it's so true. So my big advice would be just don't be too consumed with the stuff that you're reading or the stuff that people say about you. Because I think in the beginning we all struggle with that. We it almost feels like you have to pay attention to it because the fans are going to be the ones, if they support you enough, they're helping catapult your career. So in some aspect they got a certain amount of power, but it also relies on whoever the booker is or the company, how they perceive you and view you. And those two things kind of got to go hand in hand. So when you're seeing stuff that, someone's not liking what you're doing or your work, it can be very, very damaging to the psyche for some of the wrestlers. And some people easily brush that off. I did not in the beginning easily brush that off, not without the help of Samoa Joe and guys talking to me, helping me understand that doesn't represent everybody. You're seeing one comment or two comments, but there's a whole bunch of others, and there's like ice cream, wrestling's ice
Yeah.
cream. You cannot get everybody to like your flavor of ice cream. It is impossible. So the sooner you give up on that goal, the more fun you'll have in wrestling and the better you'll be, more relaxed. And it literally became a point where if I can just get one person to like what I'm doing, then I'm okay with that. That makes me happy.
Yeah.
And I think if you can just lower it to something more obtainable like that, instead of because this new era of like everybody wants everybody to like what they're doing, but it's just impossible. So that would be my tip to anybody, not even anybody in the wrestling business or anybody thinking about getting into the wrestling business. And it, I'm not saying to ignore the fans or ignore what they're saying, because to some degree we need to keep our finger on the pulse
Yeah.
of what's going on. So like we kind of got to know how they are perceiving us. We kind of got to sift through, because some people just want to be negative on purpose because they get off on it. So, but yeah, that would probably be my advice if I can give one tip. And like I said, it's more of a personal thing of experience that I've something personal that I experienced. So maybe that'll help somebody because it's tough up here for a lot of people.
No, 100%. And then that's great advice. And it's just going to get, there's going to be more things said more and more the more the world changes in society and social media. It's all around you. You can't ignore it all. So you're going to see it, but it's how you react to it and how you let it affect you, or how you take it. Is that constructive criticism, or is that just someone being rude for the sake of being rude?
Correct.
You know? And it's completely correct. So I think that's great advice. I really, really, really appreciate your time. This was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thanks for having, like, this wasn't even an interview. You're right. This was a conversation. Thanks for having a conversation with me.
Of course I try. That's what I shoot for. I want to ask you for one last favor. And I usually end it off with this. As I mentioned, the Macho Man is like my favorite of all time. But maybe if you're okay with it, and you don't have to, if you could just wrap this up with a ooh yeah, dig it in the Macho Man's voice, and then we can cut it.
Yeah, I mean, I could easily do that. You want to know something weird about my impressions?
Yeah.
So for the Ric Flair impression, I can only say things that I've heard him say.
Yeah.
It's very tough for me to say things that I've never heard him say. And I don't know why that is for my Ric Flair one. But for the Macho Man one, which I always thought was interesting after I started that Ric Flair impression, the Macho Man one, even if I've never heard him say it, it's easier. I can still pull it off. It's wild. And I don't know what it is about it. I was like going to research why that is, or because one of the things, because the Flair, you kind of got to like hold each line. Like, of course, he would always say when you're living, but the word living is stressed out and you got to hold. So it's like a little longer, like when you're living. So just you hold it at the end.
Yeah.
But like, if I had to say I got to make a phone call, I've never heard him say that. So that one's harder for me to say, which is wild. But as Macho Man, I got to make a phone call real quick. That one is like super easy for me to say. I don't know. And that's wild when I think about it. I don't know why. I can, I got to go to a supermarket, but you know what? They were all out of grapes. Like, doesn't it? It's so weird.
That was awesome. Yeah.
It's so weird to me that I can. Like, it doesn't matter. I can make, no matter what it is you want me to say, I can say it as the Macho Man, but the Flair is very limited things I can say. I thought that's funny. But yeah, and oh yeah, ooh yeah, that part there, because that, like you're a Macho Man too, that is burned in my head. Like
100%.
Yes,
I didn't even choose to do that. I didn't choose to do that when I first started doing interviews and stuff. I was so like socially awkward about them. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna be a good interviewer. It was never my intention. I was trying to grow my horizons of what I can do. I still feel like I'm learning every day, like trying my hardest. But I didn't know how to end it, because ending it is always so awkward. Like, okay, bye. Hope you come back and show this great. Like, just cutting it seemed awkward. So it's become a thing where like at the end I would just be like, ooh yeah, dig it,
Yes,
and the thing is, everyone knows it's the end when I do that. And you'll see, like, when I did the podcast with Shad Gaspard or the certain guests, that when I start doing it, they start laughing and they'll start doing the hand movements themselves. And I always found it to be like just a great way to know, like, we're done.
Yes,
it's over.
One
That's my only sign off.
I would also like in his promos where he would never stay face here. A lot of times he would turn, and this was so interesting turning because when they turned, I felt like I was moving my head to the side because I tried so hard to keep seeing his face, and he like that made me want to see him even more.
Well, don't you
Because he
feel
just
like that's
never
the art
sat
of it?
still.
That's like the art
Yes,
of it. Because
yes.
someone just standing still looking in the camera and cutting a promo, like cool. But if the guy keeps moving, like you're like you can't be on your phone. You like where is he going? Why is he turning around?
Right, right.
Where do you
Now
pop
here's the
that out
thing.
of?
In wrestling school, when you're going through promo class, they
Yeah,
actually teach you to stay still, which is wild
yeah,
because the person sitting at home on camera, they don't need to be doing this trying to see
yeah.
you. They need to just be able to relax. So it's like total opposite of what we've learned, which is
I mean, in
I
this
think kind of
generation of
cool
cell
too.
phones and distractions, I feel like the more you move, probably the better because I'll pay attention because where are you going? Where are you going?
Right, right, right,
Yeah,
right.
no. I mean, I honestly, I feel it right now. We could probably spend another half hour just talking about the Macho Man and his
I
mannerisms.
think we could. I think we could. I think we
But
could.
I don't want to keep you too long. And once again, I
Thank you
appreciate it
so
so much.
much.
Thank
No,
you.
thank you.
This was a
Thank
blast.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And if you want to give us the sign off, I'll stop the recording.
Okay, here we go. Woo! Yeah, dig it.
Really appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.